The Garage and the Glory, 1976 to 1984. A fruit. That's it. Just a fruit. But somehow, that fruit became the most valuable company in human history. What's up, everyone? Welcome back to Zaibis. Today, we are zooming in on the company that reinvented the phone, the computer, and the music player. This is a story of two guys named Steve, a garage in California, a betrayal, and the greatest comeback in business history. This is the complete history of Apple. Los Altos, California. While most people were listening to disco, Steve Wozniak, the Woz, was trying to build a computer just for fun. He was a genius engineer who just wanted to show off to his friends. But his friend, Steve Jobs, had a different idea. He said, "No, let's sell it." On April 1st, 1976, April Fool's Day, Apple Computer was born. The Apple, I was a hobby kid. But the Apple II, that was a revolution. It was the first computer that looked like a consumer appliance. Suddenly, businesses bought them. Schools bought them. Apple went from a garage to a massive corporation almost overnight. By 1980, they went public. Jobs and Woz became instant millionaires. But money changes things. Jobs visits Xerox. He sees something called a mouse. He took the idea and ran with it. The result was the Macintosh, 1984. It was the first affordable computer that spoke to you. Hello. It was friendly. But inside the company, a civil war was brewing. The Fall and the Return, 1985 to 2001. Jobs had hired John Scully from Pepsi to be CEO, famously asking him, "Do you want to sell sugar water for the rest of your life? Or do you want to come with me and change the world?" Well, turns out the sugar water guy was ruthless. In 1985, after a power struggle, Steve Jobs, the founder, was fired from his own company. Without Jobs, Apple lost its soul. They started throwing spaghetti at the wall. The Newton, the Pippin, generic beige boxes. It was a mess. By 1996, Apple was 90 days away from bankruptcy. They needed a miracle. They needed a new operating system. And guess who had one? Apple bought Jobs' new company, Next, and the king returned. His first move? He slashed 70% of the products. Then, in 1998, he revealed the iMac. It was blue. It was translucent. It was beautiful. It made computers cool again. Apple was back. The tech bubble had just burst. And Apple releases an MP3 player? Critics laughed. But the iPod had the click wheel. It had iTunes. And those white earbuds became a status symbol. The iPod didn't just save Apple, it changed the entire music industry. The ecosystem and the future, 2007 to today. Then came the iPhone in 2007 and the iPad in 2010. This was the peak. Apple was untouchable. But on October 5th, 2011, Steve Jobs passed away. The world mourned. The question was, can Apple survive without him? Tim Cook took the wheel. He wasn't a product visionary. He was a logistics genius. Under Cook, Apple built an ecosystem. The Apple Watch, AirPods, services. Critics said Apple became boring. But Tim Cook turned Apple into a money-printing machine, hitting a $3 trillion valuation. They perfected the walled garden. Tim Cook was the opposite of Jobs. He wasn't a product guy. He was an operations genius, the guy who made the supply chain run efficiently. Critics immediately called Apple boring. They said innovation was dead. Cook ignored them. He realized Apple didn't need a new revolutionary product every year. It needed to maximize the ones it had. He introduced larger iPhones, the 6 Plus, capitulating to market trends. They sold like crazy. Think about this. Apple's wearables division alone, just Watch and AirPods, makes more money than the entire company of Netflix. Cook turned Apple from a hitmaker into a money-printing ecosystem, the soul of the machine, the Jony Ive era. To understand Apple, you can't just talk about Steve Jobs. You have to talk about the man with the gentle British voice, Sir Jony Ive. For 20 years, he was the head of design, and he and Jobs were spiritual partners. They would walk around the Apple campus every day at lunch, obsessing over curves, materials, and feel. Jony Ive is the reason your laptop is made of aluminum, not plastic. He's the reason your phone feels like a piece of jewelry. He was obsessed with simplicity, sometimes to a fault. He hated buttons, he hated screws, he hated seams. His philosophy was inevitable. The device should look like it couldn't possibly be any other way. This obsession led to some of Apple's biggest wins, like the unibody MacBook Air, which was so thin it fit in a manila envelope. But it also led to their biggest failures. Remember the trash can Mac Pro, or the butterfly keyboard that broke if a single crumb got under it, or the mouse that you couldn't use while charging? That was the cost of putting form over function. Without Jony Ive's obsession, Apple would just be another computer company selling beige boxes. The privacy war. Tim Cook versus the FBI. If Steve Jobs defined Apple's products, Tim Cook defined Apple's values. And the biggest test came in 2016. The FBI had the iPhone of the San Bernardino shooter, and they wanted to unlock it. They demanded that Apple build a backdoor, a special version of iOS that would bypass the security. It sounded reasonable to some. It's for national security. It's just one phone. But Tim Cook saw the bigger picture. He knew that if he built a tool to hack an iPhone, eventually, that tool would get out. It would be used by dictators, hackers, and criminals. So, Apple did the unthinkable. They said no to the U.S. government. It was a massive gamble. Public opinion was split. The FBI threatened to take them to the Supreme Court. But Apple stood its ground. They positioned privacy as a fundamental human right. Eventually, the FBI got into the phone using a third-party hacker, and the lawsuit was dropped. But the message was clear. Apple was willing to fight the government to keep your data locked up. This moment cemented the iPhone as the fortress of the tech world. The cult, the lawsuits, and the walled garden. We also have to talk about the cult of Apple. Marketing has always been their secret weapon. In the 90s, the Think Different campaign didn't even show computers. It showed Einstein, Gandhi, and Picasso. It told you that buying a Mac made you a creative rebel. Then came the Get a Mac ads. I'm a Mac, and I'm a PC. It brilliantly framed Windows users as boring, spreadsheet-loving nerds, and Mac users as cool, creative artists. But behind the cool image, Apple is a ruthless legal machine. Steve Jobs famously declared thermonuclear war on Android, calling it a stolen product. Apple and Samsung spent years in court, suing each other over the shape of a rectangle and the icon of a sunflower. This ruthlessness built the walled garden. Think about it. iMessage. The blue bubble versus the green bubble. It's a brilliant psychological trap. If you leave Apple for Android, you ruin the group chat. Your photos don't transfer easily. You lose your purchase movies. They have engineered the ecosystem so that leaving is painful. It's the most profitable trap in history, and it's why Apple users are the most loyal customers on the planet. The modern titan, silicon, and the walled garden, 2021 to today. In 2020, Apple made its biggest gamble in a decade. They dumped Intel and started making their own chips for Macs. Apple Silicon, the M1. It was a massive success. Suddenly, laptops were powerful, quiet, and had battery life that lasted all day. They controlled the entire widget, from the silicon to the software. Today, Apple is a titan. It was the first company to hit a $3 trillion market cap. But being that big puts a target on your back. They are fighting battles on all fronts. The EU forced them to finally adopt USB-C on the iPhone. Companies like Epic Games are suing them over their strict control of the App Store. Apple's biggest strength is also its biggest controversy, the walled garden. iMessage Blue Bubbles, AirDrop, iCloud, they all work seamlessly together, making it incredibly painful to leave for Android. It's a golden cage, but it's a very comfortable one. And now they are betting on the future with the Vision Pro headset, trying to convince us that spatial computing is the next step after the iPhone. From a garage in Los Altos to the spaceship campus in Cupertino, the journey of Apple is the story of modern technology. What is your favorite Apple product of all time, or your biggest frustration with them? Let me know in the comments below. Thanks for watching Zaibis. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you in the next deep dive.